years ago to say I was doing all the caring and I wanted to go for 4 days on holiday and was desperately worried about what would happen to her. So after a lot of clamouring over several months, they finally assessed her. But I know they were hard-pressed, they've got so many cases. And she also is rather stubborn and has refused to have more than half an hour a day.
But I wondered if you asked yourselves, sorry to interrupt Mary, who will look after you?
Oh, well, I'm fortunate I have a family. She does not.
You've obviously
and
done...
most of her friends who lived nearby have either died or moved away.
Mary, you've obviously done a great job. Thank you for coming on to talk to us about that. We're going to hear now from Mandy. She was on last night's Panorama talking about the inadequate care of her mother who had dementia and other health problems and who was in a care home. Mandy, the question I wanted you to answer was a question that occurred to me while I was watching the programme, and it's certainly a question that's been put by our listeners, and that is, why did you put your mum into a home in the first place when she was obviously unhappy there?
She was, my mum did live with me. She lived with my family and myself for 2.5 years. My mum became lonely for her own age group. She obviously wasn't getting the stimulation that she would get amongst people her own age, and you know, in a residential home. My mum also went downhill to the stage where she had a room upstairs, she had a stair lift and was unable to get on the stair lift. The carers were finding it very difficult to get her to the bathroom to meet her needs in the bathroom. So, you know, we talked long and hard, my mum, my family and myself, and mum decided that a residential home was the way to go, knowing that she could come back here if she needed to.
Do you work, Mandy?
I don't now, but I did at the time.
And do you have young children to care for?
No, at the time I was a foster carer. Right now I don't. And yes, I realise that I am in a position where I could bring my mum home, but there are so many people that can't, and there are so many people that don't have relatives either, which is why we need to speak out for them. It's infuriating to think that they can be lost, they can be forgotten. You know, Mary, bless her, she's doing the right thing. This is what we all need to do. We need to be their eyes, we need to be their ears, because they are being lost.
You were amazed at the transformation of your mother when she came out of the home.
Yeah.
You must have felt you should have done it sooner, brought her home.
We did. The thing is that my mum was moved from a residential home to a nursing home where she would hopefully have received the nursing that she needed to keep her able to communicate, able to mix and enjoy life. Unfortunately, her enjoyment of life didn't seem to happen. It was very short-lived. She did set off on a very good foot, but unfortunately she went downhill, and we noticed it, and we did our best. What we felt we needed to at the time.
Thank you very much for coming on and explaining that to us, and you can see Panorama on the BBC iPlayer if you missed it. You're listening to Call You and Yours on Radio 4, and today we're discussing the care system. We're getting lots of calls. Shari Val is with the team answering the phones. She's been going through your emails as well. Shari, what are people saying?
It's a cross-section of opinion. Lots and lots of very touching personal experience, like this from Caroline. She says, my mother is a widow and she has complex disabilities at the age of 75, which leave her in a wheelchair. She requires live-in help as she can do little for herself any longer. She says, before all council funding was withdrawn, she received 35 hours worth of help a week. The fact that she could no longer feed, toilet or bathe herself is not seen as a medical need, but rather a social one. This fact alone highlights the idiocy of the divide between the social and the health services and the provisions to us in the UK. What she says is, I wonder, with dread, at the age of 46, what on earth the situation will be when I require care. It's echoed by Ray. He says, following a stroke at the age of 50, I now require personal daily care to help with washing and dressing, because my previous prudence during my working life, I have savings and therefore get minimal financial assistance towards the cost of personal care. It's therefore paid from my retirement savings pot, money I can never replace. What I've found is the personal home care business is typically run on greed, and any idea that there's possibly care or even service is misplaced. Also, paying a premium doesn't necessarily guarantee anything other than the funds dissipate quicker. I now dread the thought of reaching... It's written saying it's important to create good homes, otherwise a risk of scaring the elderly unnecessarily. My mother, at 96, is in an excellent care home, and that's also echoed by a former professional carer. He says, when the media report or hold interviews on the subject, it always seems to be from the point that it's better for elderly people to stay in their own homes, as you can also tend to report only one side of the story, as with the case of the lady in Blackpool, which is extremely sad, he says. He says, I've worked in the care industry, both live-in and also doing evening calls. He says this is extremely depressing, to say the least, for people who are brave enough to go out and attend these calls. When you see people living in poor circumstances, isolated, lonely and depressed, keeping people at home is not always the best thing for people. And he says, I do wish the media would recognise this. There are bad cases out there, but there are also a lot of people trying to do their best in extremely difficult circumstances. Winfried, I'm here collecting emails at youandyours@bbc.co.uk. My colleagues around me are answering telephone calls on 03700 14444. Texts arriving on 84844 on the other screen, and the tweets are coming in too using the hashtag #YouandYours.
Thanks, Shari. The poor care that's been in the news has involved paid carers. No one is saying that there's always compassion in families. Do you expect people whose job it is to care for others to do the job properly? Debbie Sawkins, the Chief Executive of the National Skills Academy for Social Care, was set up by the government to provide training for people who manage and work in care, in homes and in people's homes. Debbie Sawkins, why do you think we fail some older people so badly?
I think it is the case that you can train people to do their jobs well. There are clear induction standards for managers and for people working in care. There is a clear qualifications and credits framework. But I think where the problem arises is if people see this just as a question of training, just as a question of knowing how to voice somebody. It's not. It's about how people behave and how people care. I was very much taken with the gentleman from Stroud when he said that the person who said it was his job to make people happy got the job. It was about the attitudes of the management team, the behaviours and the leadership shown by the whole team. So I think where the failings come around are not in the skills that people have, but in thinking consistently about how to apply them, and that they need applying every day for people at all levels of the workforce. So it doesn't matter if you're a care assistant or an apprentice, this means you.
So it's not so much a care gap, a skills gap rather, it's more a care gap, a cultural problem.
I think so. It's about attitudes and leadership, and seeing that leadership can drive and change culture and quality. And you can teach leadership as well, in that you can teach leadership behaviours, you can develop the behaviours that, for example, will bring things like dignity and empathy and compassion in their wake.
How do you make care an attractive career when the work's demanding and the pay is low?
Well, that's the same for many areas. And I'm with one organisation, a care organisation that services all around the country. And we were just talking about this before, and the chief executive was saying, well, within his organisation, care is not seen as something that is low status, it's seen as something that is in fact very high status and very important and a clear and growing sector of the economy. So I think there's something about the providers themselves getting out to schools and universities and banging the drum for social care, just what it can do and just what an attractive career it can be.
Debbie Sawkins from the National Skills Academy for Social Care, thank you for coming on. This is You and Yours, and today we're discussing the care system, the great divide between care in hospital, which is always free, and care at home or in a home, which is means tested. Next here we're going to be talking about why we are all so reluctant to plan for the care that we may need one day, and we'll be talking about a new idea that's gaining support for a premium bond-style national savings scheme for social care. First, Martha Carney will tell us what's going to happen with World at War. Martha.
Well, Winifred, on today's programme, as NATO forces hand over responsibility for security in Afghanistan to the National Army there, we asked Nick Carter, the Deputy Commander of International Forces, whether it's up to the task. We speak to the Culture Secretary Maria Miller about her attempts to force internet companies like Google and BT to do more to prevent online access to child pornography. And following Charles